say.
Okay, cool. I'll put it in the chat box if I need to interject.
Okay, all right. So why is emotional health so important? Well, first of all, it's important to note that emotional and mental health are intertwined, and that our emotional health is important for a variety of reasons. The question is, when we're presented with any challenge or obstacle, diversity of any kind, we can either go through it or we can grow through it. There's a big difference between the two. And so if we have emotional health and emotional buoyancy, we're able to cope with life's challenges without prolonged unnecessary suffering. We are able to navigate this VUCA world. So VUCA is a well-known term, and it represents volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So we live in this world, and we're hoping to make our way through it with more well-being, ease, and contentment. We're hoping to extract more value from your time. So you have 24 units of time every day. You are the custodian of that time, and you get to choose where and how you're going to invest it. And so part of emotional buoyancy is that you're able to invest it well. And understand and manage your emotional self better with some practice, of course. And also, if there is less overreacting, it supports your physical health by boosting your immunity, because stress and chronic stress is creates stress response in the body, which impacts on your immunity. So it improves your immunity. And of course, it will help with having healthy relationships if you are emotionally, if you're able to self-regulate. So I'm very aware that there are many people who are experiencing pain. So this is not about pretending that pain doesn't exist, but that suffering is optional. And I love this quote by Haruki Murakami. So pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And the piece that I want to share about suffering is that suffering is the negative things that we do or say to ourselves that prolongs the pain and keeps it alive long after the emotion has gone. And you're going to hear today how emotions are biological responses of, it's a stress response in the body, and that it happens, it's like a chemical rush. And once we flush that rush, the pain actually goes. But what prolongs it is the thoughts and the stories that we tell ourselves that keep that on loop and replay and replay. So I'm hoping to ease the suffering and the stories we tell ourselves. So emotional buoyancy can be described as your ability to control how you think about how you feel. So your head thinks and responds and perceives something, and your heart will be responding with a feeling and an emotion. And what we're wanting to do is to manage the heart and the feelings that we have so that it doesn't flood our whole bodies, that our inability to think, that we lose our ability to think. Once we have flushed the biochemical rush, to return back to the thinking and to control how we think about what we feel. So I just want to say a few words quickly about emotion. So emotion is energy in motion. Our brains are wired to perceive our external world. Either what's happening around us is either going to be perceived by us as a threat to us, or it's perceived as a reward. And depending on how we perceive our external world, if it's perceived as a threat, we will have a negative emotion. So there's energy in motion in the body that is negative. And if it's perceived as reward, it will be a positive emotion, positive energy happening in the body. So I'm just going to show how in this, the positive and negative emotion can be high energy and low energy. So for example, a positive energy, which is green, which I've shared as green, positive high energy would be the feelings of enthusiasm, passion, and joy. They're very high energy positive emotions. But you also get low energy positive emotions. For example, peacefulness and contentment. It's a positive emotion, but it is low energy, okay? Then you get a negative high energy emotion, like anger, frustration, and hatred. That's a very high energy negative emotion. And a low energy negative emotion would be something like loneliness, grief, sadness, and shame. It doesn't fool you with energy. It's a very quiet negative emotion. So emotions can be positive or negative, and they can be high energy or low energy in the body. And I want to share with you this concept about emotions, because emotions are there to guide us to explore the beliefs that limit us. I really like this image of, so what we've got is we're looking at a vehicle with gauges. The idea is that emotions are gauges. We are the vehicle, and the gauges are indicators. So it's providing instruction for us to take action. And in our bodies, the gauges that we have are emotions. It's biofeedback. It's a biofeedback mechanism like a gauge. So if you think of a car with a petrol gauge, when the petrol gauge flashes red, the warning light flashes red, we don't panic about the fact that it's flashing red. We go, oh, we need to go and fill our tank with petrol, okay? And I want you to imagine that emotions are very similar. That if you have a negative emotion, it's a red flashing light that says, oh, you need to take some action. You need to fill your tank. A negative emotion is saying there is something that you need to take a look at. There's a perception, a perceived threat out there. You need to take care of yourself. You need to take a look and find out what is the action you need to take. So in a way, emotions are messengers. They are messengers for us. So trying to avoid emotion is the same as trying to avoid a petrol tank with a flashing light that would want to get rid of that, or that you would want to avoid it. It's there to help you. It's there to guide you. And they're there to assist us to align more with our authentic self. Now, if we had more time, I'd go a little bit more into that, but I really want to get to the practical side. It's just important that you understand that emotions are indicators of your current perception about a situation. So it's your perception of a situation. And if it's flashing red or if it's negative, it's like saying to you, you need to take some action. Okay. So I'm going to take you through the 5 steps for emotional buoyancy. And you should have in front of you, hopefully, and if you don't, you can get this from the links that we provide, to the 5 steps to emotional buoyancy, this document, and I'm going to be taking you through that. All right. So the first step is to really identify what you are feeling. And as I said before, there are feelings that are positive, whether they are high or low energy, they are positive. And then you get emotions that are low or high energy, but negative emotions. So positive is green and negative is red. And what I've done is I've printed out this list, which has been compiled. It's a combination of a variety of authors. The Dr. David Hawkins wrote this book, Power versus Force, where he measures the vibrational frequency of different emotions, and there's quite a lot of research around this. Dr. Joe Dispenza also does quite a lot of work around this, but essentially every emotion has a vibrational frequency in your body. As I said, it is energy in motion. So what happens is that when you are feeling an emotion, if you aren't aware of the emotion, it's very difficult to process it or flash it or know what to do with it. So first thing is to notice it. What am I feeling? And I've put together this list, and it goes from 1 to 27. But essentially, it's a list of a variety of emotions. And as you can see here, the highest emotion that you could possibly feel energetically in your body is enlightenment and peace. And the second is joy, empowerment, freedom, love, and appreciation. Okay, so anytime you are feeling those energetically from a vibrational frequency point of view, it's going to have an incredibly positive response in your body. It literally boosts your immunity, okay? And anytime you're feeling any of the emotions in the red, with the worst one, number 27, is shame, and 26 is guilt, and of course 24, which is fear. So we've got grief, depression, despair, powerlessness, and a lot of what's happening around us is pushing people into those states of fear and grief, depression, which really does shut down our immune systems. So for our physical health, one of the best things we can do for ourselves is to work with our emotions and to move up the scale towards better feeling emotions. So how do we do that? Right, the first thing, there's the list. Sorry, that's probably a better picture, just closer. And you will have access to this as well on the links. So the first thing that we want you to be able to do is to feel the feeling. Okay, there's absolutely no point in trying to avoid feelings. You feel what you feel. And what happens is, as I said earlier, it's literally a biochemical rush, and you will be flooded with it because your brain has perceived either a threat or a reward in its external environment. And as a response to that, okay, there is an instinctive reaction where it's responding to the stimuli, and it will either be a positive or a negative emotion, energy in motion. Now, that is in your body, and the best way to get rid of it is to feel that we can flush for men, it's through physical activity. So physical activity, and of course this doesn't only apply to men, it's just we've noticed and through the research that these are the best ways to do it. So women tend to flush emotion by talking about it. Men tend to flush emotion best by physical activity. So getting out there, doing physical activity and being highly active flushes it. And you can flush it through meditation, spending time in nature. It can ground us. It's called earthing, and it absorbs the electromagnetic fields in our body. So flush, so feel it, just don't stay in it, okay? The next part we want to do is, once we have flushed the emotion, it allows the thinking part of our brain to activate. So, you know, when you're feeling very strong emotion, the seat of your emotion, the amygdala, there is what's known as an amygdala hijack. It's the inability to think clearly. And now we want to flush that so we can move into thinking clearly. And what we're going to do here is to separate the facts from the story. So part 3 is really about understanding, and perhaps I wonder, Susie, if it wouldn't be useful for us to talk through this situation that people find themselves in, being surrounded by COVID and the fear that it brings. So separating the facts from the story. So there are facts, we're surrounded by facts. So which facts, and as you can see, this image here is the picture of the elephant, and depending on where you're looking, depending on where you're standing, you will see a different perspective. So sometimes the fact, for example, would be the elephant in the room. That's the fact, all right? But your interpretation, your perspective, your perception is very limited. It's based on who you are and your personality and your mindset, and do you have all the information? And that's part of the problem, is that whenever we were following a news report or any information, a lot of the time the information that we receive is through one piece, one view, one perspective, and there are multiple perspectives. And the same is true of this COVID and coronavirus situation. There are multiple perspectives on the situation. So you want to be clear that there are facts, but there's also your perspective, and what you believe to be the truth is valid. It's your truth. It is a truth. So we could say this gentleman's truth is that the elephant is around, what he sees, hears, and understands is the tail or the back end of the elephant. And that's valid and true, but it's not the whole truth. It's a subjective truth. It's a perception. And what happens is that when we get caught up in one perception of any situation, we can become very panicked. Because if we feel like, oh, that's the entire truth, that's what we have to deal with, when actually there are multiple perspectives. So we're trying to introduce this idea that there are multiple perspectives on any one situation. But what's important to understand is, how is your current perspective impacting on how you're feeling? So what we want to understand is, what would you need to believe to be true about yourself in relation to the situation to feel what you're feeling? So if we take a look at a lot of people, what would they need to believe to be true about themselves is, for many people, they are feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling stressed out, they are, okay, so the feelings are despair, grief, fear, anxiety, okay? A lot of those feelings are based on the perspective of how they're seeing the situation right now. And what would you need to believe to be true about yourself in relation to the situation? Well, if you are feeling those feelings, you must not trust in your own capabilities to recover. You must not trust in your own resilience. You must not feel that you are able to adapt to changes in your life. You must not feel that you are the creator, that you can create your own reality, that you can create something different, that there are opportunities around you. So the question is, in order to be feeling what you're feeling, okay? The next step is to understand, if this is what I'm feeling, and what I've given to you, Susie, is the understanding the messages. So what I've taken is to explore this perception that you have that's limiting you in some way. Because if it is a limiting perspective or a limiting belief, you will have a negative emotion about it. So what we're wanting to do is to change the way that you perceive the situation. And what I've printed out is this document is to provide you with a sense of the messages in emotions. So I've taken the top 10, that's based on Anthony Robbins' top 10 power emotions from The Giant Within. It's also contributed by Martha Beck, Finding Your North Star. And I've taken the top 10 predominant, there are the top 10 predominant emotions. And what we're going to do is we would take the top of the feelings that we explore, or that you're exploring within yourself, is what is the What is the feeling that you're feeling? And what is the action? So it's the gauge. The gauge is trying to guide you to action. So what is the action that it's trying to guide you towards? Do you need to accept a situation? Do you need to change a situation? Or do you need to leave a situation? Those are literally the only three options that you have with anything, is to accept it, to change it, or to leave the situation. So let's talk COVID-19. First of all, a lot of us are going to have to step into acceptance because we are not able to leave the situation. So we either have to accept it or to change. Now, change what? What are the things that we are able to control? What are the things that we have control over? We have control over changing our perceptions, changing our choices and decisions, and changing our actions. So let's take a look at the emotion of, say, fear or anxiety. So that seems to be the predominant emotion that are coming up for people. All right. So fear is an indicator that your stress response is trying to protect you from danger. All right. And anxiety is the fear or the anticipation of not feeling ready or prepared for a future or something that is going to happen that you need to prepare for. So it's the anxiety is that you do not feel prepared for this future. And you need to either prepare for the future or manage to cope with the situation, or to change the situation. As we've said, you're either going to change your perception, change your choice, or change your action. So this question is, well, okay, so I'm feeling fear and anxiety because I'm not necessarily prepared for a future. So that's the message of the emotion. So what are the possible actions? So the possible action, review the things that are scaring you. What are you afraid of the most? What do you need to prepare yourself? How can you cope or manage with the situation in the best possible way? You either need to run from the danger in the situation, we're not able to run from it, or to face your fear. The antidote is to become resilient and empowered. Believe in the strength of your own wings to fly above any obstacles. So the bird that's sitting on the branch that's about to break, I'm just going to go to that metaphor. If a bird is sitting on a branch and a branch is about to break, it doesn't fear for its life because it trusts in its ability to fly. It trusts in its capacity, ability, and we need to look to ourselves, and to part of the facing the fear is to prepare for uncertainty, and we need to trust in something. What are we going to trust in? What are the changes we need to make? We need to change our relationship with uncertainty, okay? So I'm going to jump to the next slide because this is step 5. And step 5 is around choosing a new empowering thought. So the thought that I'm not able to cope with uncertainty, the thought that I am not going to handle what's coming, the thought, whatever the thought is, excuse me, that's a perception of yours. That perception of yours is causing a stress response in your body. So what you want to do is to change your perception of the situation. And in this scenario, what would you need to believe to be true about yourself in relation to the situation to move up the scale to a better feeling place? So if we're looking to move up to, say, hopefulness or optimism, my question is, what would you need to believe to be true about yourself in order to feel optimistic and to feel hopeful? So we're trying to include, so to use our thinking brain to control the panic, the fear, the suffering, and some of the things that we can, for example, what would I need to believe in? I would need to believe in my adaptability. I would need to believe that I can adapt to the changes in my life with ease. I trust in my creativity and ingenuity in times of change. I need to believe in my resilience. I see the gift and opportunities in adversity. I am resilient. This too shall pass. I can and will become a stronger, wiser version of myself. I need to believe in my own creatorship. I am the creator of my life. I accept responsibility for the choices I make. I create my reality with my thoughts and actions. I'm grateful for the blessings in my life every day. Can you hear how these thoughts, those kinds of beliefs, are going to move you upwards into a better, so it's a better feeling thought. It's a belief that generates a very different response in your body. So I'm going to, we're already 25 minutes in. Susie, I'm going to check with you. Perhaps you can, would you like me to continue, or what would you like me to do at this point?
At this point, I think, I would really like for you to continue and to summarize the session. I've been able to follow everything so far, and it all flows beautifully and makes complete sense. And I think if we were to stop now, then I would miss out.
Okay. All right. Great. So, all right. So the habits. So the way that this ends is by looking to the choices that you make. It said, what are the things you can change? Well, the things you can change are your actions and your choices. And one of the actions and the choices that you have full ownership of and can take full responsibility for are your practices and habits, and mental health and emotional health. The two are intertwined. So, for example, the practices. What do you need to practice? Is a daily practice. So one of the first practices, for example, for better feeling thoughts is gratitude. Whatever we think and think about, we bring about. So it's about cultivating gratitude for the things that you do have. So the hormones, the boost serotonin and dopamine. So the response in the body, there's a physical response, a biochemical rush that happens when you are experiencing gratitude and appreciation. So the practice would be, for example, to write down the lists of the things. So daily practice, wake up and once it becomes a habit, you walk around being thankful all the time. Every time you get up and you turn the kettle on, I'm thankful I have electricity. I'm thankful I have a tap to turn on to fill the kettle. It becomes a mindfulness practice. And this shifts your energy by focusing off of complaints and problems. So you literally, energetically are shifting the way that you feel in your body by thinking, because the energy of gratitude, as we've seen, is an incredibly high vibrational frequency. So you will feel better. So this is one practice. Another practice would be so this is a practice that sort of neutralizes. So peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. So the idea of meditation, silencing of the mind, mindfulness meditation, deep breathing, is that it calms the nervous system. So if you think about when you are in a stress response and you have a negative emotion, your sympathetic system, everything is out of, it's like an orchestra, but every organ is playing to a different tune, and there's just cacophony, it's just noise, okay? So what happens is when you do silencing of the mind and mindfulness meditation, it creates coherence in the body. So coherence is when all the organs are working rhythmically together. And so what happens is it brings calms the parasympathetic system is switched on. It provides a sense of calm in your body, and so it brings neutrality and calmness. So it's that positive, low energy. So it's a very positive thing you can do, but gratitude and gratitude and meditation are the two things that you can do as a daily practice that will assist you or facilitate you into feeling positive emotion and that energy that will allow you to then access better feeling thoughts. So it's very difficult to access a better feeling thought when you are in a stress response. So both of these practices really assist with access to better feeling thoughts. And one last thing that I just like to say that I learned recently, which was extraordinary to watch. There's a TED talk by a lady called Joanna McEwen, and she shows you how music and the vibration of music can make the impact on your body. And they've proven that Baroque music has an unbelievable energetic vibrational frequency that brings coherence into your body, and they can actually show it, and they show it on the video. So I'd invite you to go and watch that as well if you think that we're talking hocus pocus here, is that there is a science to it. So that's the practical steps that you can take. And unless, is there anything that you'd like to ask that is pressing, or that I am for further clarity?
So you've said that, thank you very much, by the way, Shelley. That was really, really, really helpful and informative, and was very easy to follow. Sure. I suppose the one thing that most people are sitting with at the moment is that this makes sense to our logical brain. And you alluded yes. to the amygdala hijack and our emotional brain. So let's just put ourselves in the scenario where we want to be emotionally buoyant, we want to be mindful, we want to be, we want to have positive thoughts, but in that moment, we're being hijacked. So what would you recommend to somebody when they're feeling in that state? What would you suggest that they do?
Okay, so my description for that is that when someone is flooded or saturated with feelings, that you are doing feelings in that moment, okay? So if you are doing feelings, you need to do the feeling. You need to flash it. It needs to come out of you. So do some physical activity. Talk to somebody, find someone to talk to, get it out. You can journal, write, let it all out. In fact, journaling is one of the most remarkable things that you can do. You want to get the doing, the emotion that's happening in your body, the feeling rather, needs to come out. And it can come out in positive or negative ways. So screaming at other people is destructive. It's not constructive. So you want to find activities to flash the biochemical rush that do not impact negatively on other people. So go and lie outside and look at the sky and just be in nature. We're not able to be in nature right now, so that's probably not the best example. So you can skip, for example. You can jog on the spot. Go and find a pillow and beat the hell out of that pillow. Get that energy out. A lot of the time, emotions are flooding the system because it needs to come out. So if you try to contain it, that's just like putting a plaster over a very deep wound. It will come out at some point, and usually at the wrong time, at the wrong place, on the wrong person. So I don't advise it. I advise flushing all the chemical rushes that you experience as much as possible, and scream. A lot of the things that can help as well is like, this is not very pretty, but deep grunting, like, you know, releasing it out of your body, or shouting, and you can ask your family to please excuse you while you have a little scream or a sob in the bathroom. When you're in the shower, cry. You know, when you cry, you're releasing toxins through your tears. So that's how we flush. That's how we flush.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much, Shelley. I've really enjoyed the session today. It was very, very helpful. And I think we're done.
Great. Thank you so much for listening. And of course, you're most welcome to make contact if you have any questions. And for those, I'm not sure that I even introduced myself at the beginning. I'm Shelley Lewin, the relationship architect, and I've been working in personal and relationship development for nearly 15 years now. And so I really hope that this will help you to self-regulate in some way, and to see the opportunity that we have around us, that we are adaptable, we are resilient, and we are creators. So we will get through this, and this too shall pass.